It's time for our next segment, and we get to talk to someone really cool here. We have Jordan Kidd, who is producing a trucking podcast, and I think this is our first time getting a chat with him. So,
Definitely.
Jordan, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Nice to talk to you.
Jordan, we have a podcast, and it's called,
Life by the Mile.
Life by the Mile.
Sorry about that. We were thinking, looking at, so it's Life by the Mile podcast. What kind of got you started? I know podcasting is super popular and huge. What kind of got you started into, the trucking industry as what you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, so my start in the trucking industry goes back about 10 years now, and started with a single truck and trailer, and we've grown FreightWorks to about 125, 130 trucks now. And so it's been an interesting ride all along the way. I've done a little bit in most parts of the trucking industry. And so recently kind of came to a point where recruiting was a big focus, and we wanted to take a different approach, and not just the traditional job boards and just looking for a new way to reach our potential drivers, and a podcast was a great way to do it. And so last year we started up Life by the Mile, and it's been a really great experience and showing good results.
Jordan, I love this because when you're looking at the supply chain, a lot of times those truckers are the ones that are really underrepresented, don't have their Tory stole. They're really sometimes thought of the last part of the supply chain when they're really the lifeblood of the American economy. They're playing such a crucial role here. When you're chatting with these truckers and when you're chatting with these drivers, are there any common themes that you're hearing when getting to talk to them?
Yeah, so American truckers are really patriotic. They're very motivated individuals. Most of them will tell you straight up that they do it for their family, and it's tough for. On a family life, it's tough. It's tough to stay in touch with your family when you're out on the road, but most of them that we talk to do it for their family, and they do it for a better life for their family, and they're doing it for their children, and it's basically a way that they can provide better than they could in any other industry by working closer to home, and so they're very motivated individuals. And something that's really been coming across recently is just the ability that they have to operate in huge state of uncertainty. So there's, how would you feel if we're going to hit the road and we don't even know where we're going to stay tonight? There's a lot of uncertainty that drivers face every day, and they thrive in the midst of that and are able to pivot and do what's needed at a moment's notice. And it's not an easy industry. It's not an easy job, but they stand up and move America day in and day out.
And looking at, as you're making this podcast, I definitely agree with you on the flexibility. Back when I worked operations at a large carrier, you would literally just change up plans immediately, and you had to have people just ready to, hey, here's your whole day plan. Let's just press pause. And now we're making a brand new plan within 10 minutes. And so just immediately on the dime. So you're coming up on season 2 so far. Out of the course of all of your episodes, were there any guests or specific stories that really stood out to you?
Sure. It's hard to say just one. Of course, I'd have to mention Dean Croak, who I met through FreightWaves. Dean's got amazing stories, was a truck driver in Australia and then in the U.S. and is, just an absolute well of knowledge in trucking. But we had a team of drivers from FreightWorks who actually came on the podcast, and over the past couple of years, they've lost 250 pounds, and they've driven several million miles together, and they now have 6 ferrets in their truck. So that was a story that I don't know if we'll have that combination again. It's an incredibly motivational story about tackling driver health on the road, which is a big challenge for many truck drivers. And they've been able to overcome and like I said, lost together 250 pounds, which is really amazing. So that was a real motivational story for us.
Yeah, Jordan, you mentioned Dean Croak. He's actually a huge mentor of mine. I'm so thankful for him, and I have to listen to that episode now. I have to check that one out because I'm a huge Dean Croak
Been on
fan.
twice. So the second one's coming out this week.
I'm looking forward to it then. I'll be tuning in for that one. And Jordan, when you're looking at these stories, is there anything that really kind of encompasses these stories of a modern trucker?
Yeah, so kind of back to where we started. I started in this about 10 years ago, and I came from a technology background, and I saw a lot of ways that the industry was working on the back end, but it kind of needed a new UI, and we're starting to see that. There's a lot of new apps and a lot of new tools, a lot of new technologies that are taking place across the industry that are making drivers' lives a little bit easier. Not easy, but a little bit easier. And so, the modern trucker is definitely having to multitask quite a lot. But there's new apps that help them handle the weather and the traffic and the different route planning and trip planning and fuel prices and all the things that they're dealing with out there. But the modern trucker really has to be a solo entrepreneur is one way to put it. They're managing more variables on any given day than most of us manage in a month or a year at a more structured job. So the modern trucker has to be very entrepreneurial, able to pivot at a moment's notice and change plans and replan. Like you were saying, Thomas, I myself used to be in operations and was a load planner, and I was the one changing their entire day or week's worth of planning on a moment's notice. And while I tried to be aware of what that meant to them, the driver was the one that had to do the heavy lifting of changing plans, and that hasn't changed and probably won't change for the foreseeable future. So definitely having to deal with a lot of variables out there, and like I said before, uncertainty. Those that learn to embrace it and deal with everything as it happens are the ones that make the best plans at the end of the day.
I think when you're talking about uncertainty, it's trucking is so much not only a physical, you have to operate the vehicle, but it's a mental game. And like you said, with those plans, you can almost tell with certain drivers when they get the funk, so to speak, when, oh my gosh, my week has been messed up, this has started horrible, and not only mental health on the road, but dealing with that. Were there any suggestions from drivers or people you interviewed whenever you're having those hard days, when you're having, to deal with all these plans? Were there any tips that anyone gave you to help out in terms of like overcoming that headwind?
Yeah, I'll pull one from Dean Croak here. It was a very simple tip, but very profound and could be life-changing for a lot of drivers. And it's manage your sleep schedule, because already you're in an industry where there's not a set schedule. You're not in a set place, but if you can at least manage your sleep schedule to where you're getting a consistent 8 hours of quality sleep, and ideally in a same time frame each day or each night, that will help you face the challenges that are going to come your way, because it's really hard to make good decisions and handle things that you have to handle with 4 or 6 hours of sleep. 8 hours of sleep will go a long way to smoothing out the bumps along the way.
And not too shocked that some of the best insights come from Dean Croak, an incredible person and personality over there. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. If people want to check out your podcast, where can they find it?
Yeah, so we're on YouTube, Life by the Mile, and we're also on any and every podcast app of your choice. Just search Life by the Mile, delivered by Freightworks, or go to lifebythemile.com.
Awesome, Jordan. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We'll be checking out that podcast for sure. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Freightwaves Now.